Well, Justin Trudeau has won a third term as Canada's Prime Minister, but has fallen short of winning a majority. Votes are still being counted, but his Liberal Party currently has 158 seats. That's a few more than it won in 2019, but not enough for a majority. Trudeau had hoped to send as many Liberal MPs to Ottawa to govern without directly asking Canadians to give him the majority. But as Liz Maddock reports, he's claiming a clear mandate.
Justin Trudeau took a gamble, and it paid off, just. The Canadian Prime Minister has claimed victory for his Liberal Party, but it wasn't the payoff he hoped. This snap election is expected to deliver him only a minority government.
You are sending us back to work with a clear mandate to get Canada through this pandemic and to the brighter days ahead. And my friends, that's exactly what we are ready to do.
It was an unusual sight for a Canadian election. COVID-19 restrictions meant fewer polling stations and long waits. Opponents have criticised Trudeau for calling an election 2 years early during the pandemic. The Prime Minister was banking on his handling of the outbreak to bolster support.
There are still votes to be counted, but what we've seen tonight is that millions of Canadians have chosen a progressive plan. Some have talked about division, but that's not what I see. That's not what I've seen these past weeks across the country.
That's not how the opposition paints it. Conservatives say it was a waste of time and $500 million, as the country is heading into a fourth wave of the coronavirus.
Mr. Trudeau thinks Canadians should endure 18 more months of divisive campaigning so he can try once again to get the election result he wants. We need to heal the divides in Canada, not risk worsening them for selfish gains.
It was a clear power grab, but it won't give Trudeau the freedom to easily push through his plans to expand government spending on jobs, healthcare and the climate crisis. Liz Maddock, TRT World.
Let's get more on the story now with Chris Alexander, who joins us from Ajax in Ontario. He's a former Canadian immigration minister under the previous Conservative government. Good to have you back on the program, Chris. This essentially was quite a big gamble for Justin Trudeau. He bet that his handling of the pandemic would see him through this election and perhaps win him a majority. Do you believe that this gamble has paid off? I mean, he still is holding on to power.
Yes. It isn't what he wanted. He wanted 4 more years guaranteed, unfettered control of a majority parliament. He hasn't received that, but he's made some gains. And let's be clear, not all the ballots have been counted. Mail-in ballots still to come in, perhaps 1 million of those, which may tilt even a few more seats in his direction. So basically, it was an unpopular election. It was a gamble. People didn't want to be going to the polling stations in a pandemic. But they also didn't want the opposition to take over. And the opposition was divided, and I think Justin Trudeau knew this, between a relatively strong Conservative Party, but a breakaway group, which is really appealing to anti-vaccine sentiment, anti-mask sentiment, which is not strong in Canada, but it still exists. And that siphoned off 4 or 5, 6% of the vote, which made it hard for the Conservatives to be competitive in this election. So Justin Trudeau knew that the conditions of pandemic would favor his party, and that gamble did pay off for him.
So what was Justin Trudeau promising in terms of the economy? What was he campaigning on?
To get through the pandemic and to give the population a few things that are very popular. Subsidized daycare across the country, more affordable housing, more support for the healthcare system generally, and then a serious climate plan, which Justin Trudeau claims is better than what was on offer from the opposition. Unfortunately, in promising these things and delivering on some of them in recent years, he's racked up a huge amount of debt. The debt that this government has incurred in only 6 years is equivalent to the total debt incurred by every government in this country's history since Confederation in 1867. So they're spending like wildfire and not necessarily getting results that increase people's incomes or improve Canada's competitiveness. And I think that's the reckoning that's down the track for us. We didn't talk about our economic fortunes in Canada in this election. We'll have to do it soon because our fundamentals are deteriorating quickly.
In terms of the political landscape, we know that he hasn't won a majority of seats in the parliament. What does that mean about governing going forward? Does he have any obvious partners that he can align with to push his agenda through?
This was the challenge for him. He needed a strong Liberal Party and not to see too much of his coalition leak off to other progressive parties, notably the New Democratic Party. They have gained a few seats, but not as much as many of the forecasts expected them to. So he should be able to rely on that party to help him with a throne speech, the statement of agenda that will come soon, as well as budgets. It should be a fairly stable coalition. They probably won't have a coalition agreement the way many European governments do, but they will have a working relationship that should allow Justin Trudeau to remain Prime Minister for some time to come.
Okay, Chris Alexander, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for joining us on the program.